We live in a country where cities are growing faster than we can think. Infrastructure is trying to catch up with demand. Transport is stretched and our housing challenges are multiplying. City hai ya puzzle hai, har raah, hadbadi, har mode, halchal hai. We will sweep and swab our home, make it beautiful. We'll do paint and everything. Even the juggi people will do that. But throw the kachra outside, because we feel the onus of outside the house is a public area. Today, we don't respect our heritage because it's not part of our social interaction at all. Design, architecture, and construction is the largest plunderer of natural resources. All our emission problems, all our decay that is happening and all the natural disaster that started happening is because of overbuilding. Good design is invisible, but bad design becomes your everyday problem. That's a quote by Dieter Rams, which aptly fits a condition today. We live in a country where cities are growing faster than we can think. Infrastructure is trying to catch up with demand. Transport is stretched and our housing challenges are multiplying, both upwards and outwards. Sometimes when I travel through some localities, I feel like, is it a city or a puzzle? Just like the legendary poet Gulzar said in the TV series on Mirza Ghalib, Balli Mara ke mohalle ki pechida dalo si wo galiyan. That's exactly what I mean when I find to say city hai ya puzzle hai, har raah, hadbadi, har mode, halchal hai. Unless we learn to design our cities like ecosystem, the chaos will only keep repeating. The puzzle will become more complicated with time to level second and level third. But what if we isn't just in building more, but in designing better? Do we disagree with that? That's why today we are asking, how can global design thinking help Indian cities grow smarter, not just bigger? Hi, I'm architect Vivek Gupta, principal architect and founder of Arvind Vivek and Associates. I've been practicing for 4 decades and in the realm of public buildings, infrastructure, IT parks and malls and all kinds of genre of work. And in recent years, I've become to believe that applying global design thinking is on a scale is not only possible in India, it's essential. So let's look at what are the problems that we face and how the global design thinking can actually improve our cities. I think the problem starts from the policy level. What we need to have is better policies. I often say that India is one of the most governed or most legislated but under-governed country, because everything we need a police to manage and police people or policies or whatever. So what is lacking in this country is that the policy that we framework, the policy framework that comes into picture is always lagging behind. There is no stakeholders participation that happens, largely because we are lagging behind in the demographic, the study of the demography, how the census has come into picture in any planning that we do. Say, for instance, the city planning. Now, what happens? Take the example of Delhi. Delhi is supposed to be having a population of about 20 million, but we know that there is an influx of migrants each and every day. Now, how do those people come and fit in and get themselves provided for? The issue is that there is no census that is happening. We need to have a proper census where everybody is a bona fide resident of the city. The problem is that everybody to be provided for the water, electricity, basic transport and everything, we need to have bona fide residents. And when we don't have those numbers correct, we are always lagging behind in that planning. Supposing in 2025, we are supposed to provide for 20 million people, water for 20 million people, transport for 20 million people, and we can plan our cities which can provide for that. But the constant influx of people, this is what happens, that we are lagging behind. Then they will start hooking up onto electrical cable, they will start stealing water, and the city's infrastructure will crumble because it's not adequately providing for all those people. So what we need to do at the policy level, be ahead of the curve and provide for all these people. That becomes extremely important for a city to remain sustainable, for it to remain vibrant. Also, the other thing is that, yes, of course, we are a democratic country. People are going to migrate because we are not providing enough and more opportunities for them to have a vibrant life or industry or source of income in their own places of work or in their places of living. So how do we solve that? So what we also need to do is then de-densify these cities. How do you de-densify the cities? I can talk about Delhi, how the biggest example has been, whenever all these jhuggi jhopadis were removed, there was a provision in a far-off place called Narela, where the government provided for housing for all the labor, migrant people and everything. But those were just completely vestigial areas, where basic housing was provided, nothing else. For anybody to want to move into that area, would they not want to have a cinema next to them? Would they not want to have a mall? Would they not want to have a park? Would they not want to have a school, hospital, tertiary care? Nothing of that sort is provided. So what we need to do is that we need to start developing those areas with complete ecosystem of a city, so that you make a prototypal small area which is vibrant. People will be happy. And I think one of the examples in Delhi is there are two NCR cities that have got developed in last 30 years. One is Gurgaon, one is Noida. I think Gurgaon, there was initial resistance for people to move because there was nothing. There was not even a hospital. I remember back in the day when I shifted there was no hospital there. There were no schools there. But slowly, when all these facilities came today, I think people are leaving Delhi and moving to Gurgaon, despite all the problems, all that you read about Gurgaon being a city would get submerged in one rain and everything. People are there because it's a vibrant city. You have more liquor vents than anywhere that you can find. You have lovely hospitals. The best hospitals in the country are in Gurgaon. You have robust malls. You have all of that. And also the last mile connectivity is improving. But the problem that I spoke about earlier, that there is no census. The Delhi-Gurgaon highway that was built, expressway that was built, was supposed to cater to a certain number of cars. But the traffic has gone completely awry. Today, there is more and more traffic that every day that is coming. So what we need to do is also need to build smart. We need to provide last mile connectivity. At the same time, we also want to give incentive to people who are actually traveling by metro or who are traveling by other modes of transport rather than personal transport mode. Say, for instance, there are abroad in the global design thinking, there are separate lanes for people who are not traveling single. If you're two or more people in a car, you get a freeway, you get charged less on your toll and all of that. If we start doing all these kind of smart things, I think we will be able to create a robust system of transport, and we'll also be able to decongest the city. Also, when I spoke about planning ahead, we also need to look how people will commute in 2050. If you study correctly and with the technology coming into picture, I think we are going to have driverless cars in times to come. So if you're going to be having driverless cars, I don't think you will need to provide for as much parking as you need to do. Today in Delhi, I think the formula is about 100 square feet. You need one ECS. So imagine if you're building a 10 million square feet building, you will be needing to provide for a million square feet or so of car space, which is huge. When you start designing for this kind of a thinking where there is going to be looking at a mix of people who are going to be self-driving and people also who will be commuting, where the cars are not stationary, they don't need to get parked, they will be always moving around because these are driverless cars who will be hailed, and you can hail a car and you can go. So I think we need to start planning for that also. The other thing that has come about in the city is the transport-oriented development, which is the government has started allowing extra FAR for all those buildings which are within 500 meters or 800 meters of a transport hub, which could be a highway, which could be the metro and everything. Unfortunately, that extra FAR is leading to more chaos. The idea of giving extra FAR was that people will commute. There is a transport hub and there is a vertical building, extra FSI, extra FAR is there. You can build extra because it will encourage people to come to work in the metro. Unfortunately, in this country, unlike the global scenario, people want to come buy their own car, one person driving one car, which occupies so much of space, and there is a chaos there. So I think, again, this is a lack of policy planning that I spoke about. We need to handle that. This is another very, very important thing when we are trying to plan cities at the global level. I will give you an example of Amsterdam. If you want to purchase a car, the municipality has certain number of slots, which are parking slots, designated slots. You will put an application to the municipality if you want to buy a car. You could be the most resourceful person, you could have any amount of money, but you cannot buy a car in Amsterdam till you have a parking lot of your allocated parking lot. So what happens is whenever there is a parking slot that falls vacant, then your application moves up, and finally you get to be able to own a car because you've got the parking slot. Having said that, it doesn't mean that you're left at the mercy of that you are not provided for any transport. The transport is provided through a robust system. The last mile connectivity is taken care of. If you can't travel by road and you have the means to have a jetty next to your house, or you can moor a boat and you can travel by boat, you have cycles, you have enough and more parks and open spaces that you can actually walkable city. That's why it's called walkable or cyclable city. So these are the kind of things that we also need to look at, that how cities can be legislated and also governed through this kind of a thing. I also want to talk about on the same subject that how the parks become an extremely important, public spaces become an extremely important part of a vibrant city. In Delhi, which are the places that you can go out to, excepting your neighborhood park, which is controlled largely by RWAs, who will want you to not play in the park. They will stop children from playing in the park. So which places do we have? We don't have even playgrounds in the city. The city needs to have public spaces which are articulated public spaces. In India, everything outside of your home is a public space. The roads are public, the grounds are public, but we do not really have any article. We don't even have toilets there. Forget about any basic facility. So our cities need to have very, very good, vibrant, safe, convivial, and healthy public spaces. I think for a city to thrive, the biggest and the most important thing is to have vibrant public spaces. Also, the public spaces and well-designed public spaces give the residents or the inhabitants or the people of the country the ability to learn good design. India is about have-nots. There are more have-nots than people with means. So those have-nots are not even given to good design. They do not even have a properly ergonomic bench in their house, a seat in their house. So what happens is that at least when you have a well-designed bus stop, when you have a well-designed bench, you have a tree, there is a cover, there's all of that, they will at least appreciate, they will learn the nuances of good design. Also, I am very, very encouraged to find that certain cities that have, with the same kind of population, same kind of culture and same kind of a background, have started becoming Swachh cities. Look at Indore for that example. I think it's so heartening to see Indore today. If you travel by cab and you're outside the city and you happen to throw a wrapper outside, the cabbie will stop the car and he will pick up that. That's the stakeholders' participation in making a city vibrant. If the stakeholders' participation becomes largely responsible for making a city very, very vibrant, and I think that's why I'm saying that we need to have public spaces where people, then there are proper dustbins, there is thing. And when people see, Indians are known to have the best in their hygiene, personal hygiene, and the worst in public hygiene. We will sweep and swab our home, make it beautiful. We'll do paint and everything. Even the Juggi people will do that, but throw the kachra outside, because we feel the onus of outside the house is a public area. So for the public area to become vibrant, we need to do a vibrant public space. Unfortunately, anywhere in the worst thing that you can do, because it doesn't become inclusive. On inclusivity, I also have to, very typical of Delhi, that we have some vibrant communities and city area, and we have some amazing archaeological, we have some amazing heritage structures in the city. Unfortunately, Archaeological Survey of India doesn't allow you to build around it, which is so sad. Look at the example. So learning from the global cities, you can look at London, you can look at Barcelona, you can look at Amsterdam, where the integration of those structures, which are heritage structures, to the city is so amazing. Whereas in India, if I have a tomb which is completely derelict, which has got a boundary by Archaeological Survey of India, I can't even build anything around 500 meters from there because it's a protected monument. And that protected monument is so protected that you can't even enter there. What's the point? it remains in part of the vibrant community, but that's like a dead zone. It's a black hole in the area that you're living in. Why can't you have a cafe there? Why can't you open a cafe? Why can't, and some of the great examples are like in London, how the entire wharf area, which is along the Thames, has got warehouses, have got converted into very, very vibrant area. There are malls, there are offices, there are residential area built around that. So that comes to adaptive reuse, that all of us learn to use those structures which are derelict, keep them, conserve them, preserve them, and also have adaptive reuse of that. And that's why I happen to say, it sounds blasphemous to say, why not open a cafe coffee day in Humayun's tomb or something like that. But what I mean is that in one of those monuments, which are just a gumbad or a dome, which is there in Green Park, Safdarjung, Horse Cars, all these areas, get them converted. They'll be looked after. They'll be vibrant. Kids can come and sit there. Teenagers will come. And that's how we learn about and respect our heritage. Today, we don't respect our heritage because it's not part of our social interaction at all. Yeah, so cities, yes, of course, cities will always be very vibrant only when we can look at them and we can look at how we are building frugally. Today, we also need to look at how much should we build. A city is always bursting at its seam because we are, as I said, we keep building. We are today in 2025, and the trend that we have seen post-COVID is that there are people now working from home. Everything is going to m-commerce. I think I order, and all of us order more on the mobile than to go to the actual store. Virtual shopping has become the big thing. We order from dark kitchens. We order home. Zomato is doing so well because, we are all the time ordering food. So why should we build so much? Why should we be building? You're working from home. Why should you have an office building in the downtown, which is going to be, and then this is the start of the problem that you have. The carbon footprint is increasing because you are traveling, people are commuting, the roads are congested, infrastructure crumbles, all of that happens because you are commuting. So either have smart commutes where, like I said, you are walking to work, where everything that you need as a human or as a citizen is available within your precinct, or then you are working from home and you're ordering from home and everything, and you commute only when you need to. You're going to a hospital, yes, you need to commute. There is enough and more video consult that started happening also today. So I think what we need to do is start integrating tech also in planning, because Internet of Things is huge today. IoT of transport planning. Just imagine that there are regular bus routes, and you realize that, okay, there is a certain time at 7:10 this bus will come, and there is another area where the bus service is also at 7:10, but suddenly there is a good movie or there is a match, a cricket match that's happened at Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, and suddenly there are 60,000 people. So by the big data collection that can happen, because each one is carrying a mobile, there is Internet of Things, that there are more people at this area. So you provide for transport for those people over there. So these are the kind of things that through tech we can actually build smart cities. We can build smartly and build frugally, because design, architecture and construction is the largest plunderer of natural resources. All our emission problems, all our decay that is happening and all the natural disaster that started happening is because of overbuilding. If we start building frugally, I think that's the best way to build sustainably. And then we can come down to how the global design thinking can reflect into the architecture of a city. Although there has to be a marriage of the heritage and the culture of a city. I've said often in the past that art is global, but architecture is contextual. So it will always remain contextual, whereas you can place art anywhere. You can place a Hussein in Venice also, in New York also, in India also, but Delhi has to be Delhi and Bombay has to be Bombay and Chennai has to be Chennai, because it remains very, very contextual. I've been saying that we need to create for the climate and the context that we are building in. Cities also need to be built around the context that they're building in. I wish for all Indian cities, we have a robust network of rivers, but unfortunately our riverfronts are the worst places, unlike the global way, where riverfronts are the most prime areas of focus. All the development happens along the riverfronts. I wish I could reverse that, but going forward, if there is proper planning, I think we could make, because this is a natural thing, which a flowing river is such a beautiful thing. You can actually create very diverse and very inclusive community in those areas. So in a nutshell, then, global design thinking offers a multi-dimensional approach that can significantly transform Indian cities into smarter, more sustainable environments rather than merely expanding their physical footprint. Uh, there are several ways that, in a nutshell, like I would tell you that there are several ways that we can achieve that. I think one of the most important things, like I said, was empathy planning, where you're involving the stakeholders, you're looking at the demography, you're looking at the census, you're looking for the number of people. So that empathy mapping becomes extremely, extremely important. The techniques for that is, by city, they will be helping the city planners with various stakeholders, enabling them to create more inclusive urban landscapes. Sustainable urban planning is the second point, I think, where you have resource efficiency. Design thinking encourages the use of sustainable material and practices, ensuring that urban growth is environmentally conscious. This includes waste reduction, embodied energy, and integration of green spaces. We also need to build resilient infrastructure. By focusing on sustainable design, cities can hold infrastructure that withstand environmental challenges, such as the climate change that is happening in this world. You have tsunamis, you have hurricanes, you have all of that happening. So if you have a robust infrastructure, it has to withstand the climate change. So I would like to conclude, if there are no more questions, that Indian cities don't need quick fix solutions. What they need is smart frameworks that can evolve. Flexibility of that framework is very important. Global design thinking gives us exactly that. No formulas, but ways of asking better questions. And that's why I spoke about participation of people, stakeholders' participation. Let's stop designing for problems. Let's start designing for people. We have become solution providers and problem solvers. I think what we need to do is we need to stop designing for a problem, but start designing for people. People-centric design becomes the most important thing, because a city isn't just smart because it's fast. It's smart because it's thoughtful, flexible, and human. The future of design is not just in what we build, but in how we think before we build, because I spoke about how we are mindlessly building. In the end, architecture isn't about concrete, it's about continuity, community, and common sense. Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure having spoken with you. Thank you. Yeah.